Well, good morning. My name's Don Leake, and I'll be presiding today. We have guest speaker, Dr. Eileen Korenic, and you can see the title of her talk in the spirit of good Unitarian Universalism. Don't believe everything that you see. We're always skeptical, and we're always asking questions. So. Could we have someone ring that bell that's nice and shiny and brassy? Thanks to Allison Page. Plus the plaque is cleaned up also. Thank you, Lily. So the theme this month is refresh and renew, and partly we chose that theme because I hope you notice that the auditorium is refreshed and renewed with paint. The bottom color is latte. The lighter color is linen and latte. So I could go through the list of 12 to 15 people that helped out. Well, those who are present that helped out with the painting project, please stand and be recognized. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm particularly appreciative of all those people that got high up on the scaffolding to paint up there, because I was up there and I was a bit afraid. So Allison and Sue took up that challenge of getting way up high and painting the lines. It's dark right now, so you can't see if there's anything that's amiss between the ceiling and the walls. But if we turn the lights on bright, I don't think you'd find anything, okay? Yes, Hannah?
It is August, not July?
Yes, it's August. Otherwise known as July 33rd, okay? This is July 33rd.
That's my fault.
Oh,
I did the slides.
yeah, okay, all right. Yes.
It's not a big deal at all.
Yeah, I don't think it's a big deal, but thanks for pointing that out. I don't think we have a theme for August, but maybe we'll have to come up with one, okay? All right. We could say refresh for July and renew for August, okay? We have an opening song. You can see the lineup there. Let's see if the song works.
I fill the silence with conclusions painted.
Okay, one of the gifts of the internet is that you can go on YouTube or some other music platform and find local groups from throughout the world. This is a group on the West Coast, I think it's in Oregon, called The Quiet Truth, and found that song by just typing in "Seeing is Not Believing," the title of the talk. So check out The Quiet Truth. Let's say the chalice sliding together, and Callan, you want to do the honors? With humility and courage, born of our history, we are called as Unitarian Universalists to build the beloved community where all souls are welcome as blessings, and the human family lives whole and reconciled. With this vision in our hearts and minds, we light our chalice. That's a nice vision. Maybe not reality, but it's a good vision to have. And now, let's stand and greet one another briefly. Okay, I think that's about enough. Let's see. What do the elementary school teachers do? Raise your hand. Plenty time to visit afterwards too. So, but that's good. I always like that. I noticed a few coffee cups there. I did fail to mention that we had the carpets cleaned. And the carpet cleaner, Allison tells me, says, "Hey, it's pretty good carpet." I thought we were going to rip it up in a few years, but we're going to keep it. It is sort of coffee color to go with the latte paint. But yeah, be careful. Don't be the first one to spill coffee on the carpet. It's going to happen this year, I know, but don't be the first. Now's the time for joys and concerns. Come on up, share your joy or concern. Drop a little pebble into the water, and I can do it for you, Anna, if you've got.
My concern, my friend Tatiana in Ukraine, who you all met 2 weeks ago, we were supposed to meet on Wednesday, and she texted me just at our meeting time that there were attacks in her neighborhood. She was in the hallway of her apartment building, which is where she goes to protect herself. She would get back to me. We couldn't meet on Wednesday, but she certainly said she wanted to try to reschedule. I haven't heard from her. There could be lots of reasons. If they hit the electric lines, there's no power to charge your phone or computer. If they hit the internet systems, there's no Wi-Fi. There could be several reasons why I haven't heard from her, but this has happened before, but it's always very concerning for me. So I'm hoping that the reason is something smaller.
Here's a joy of a passing, a celebration of Steely New Woman, who was a member from 2012? 2012 in this community. And Steely, she worked for Catholic, she dedicated much of her professional life as a social worker for Catholic Charities, devoting herself to serving individuals and families with compassion, dignity, and understanding. Her desire to help others was not simply a career, it was a way of life. And there will be a celebration of life for Steely from 1 to 3, Monday, August 17th, at the City Station Community Room. That's 308 River Street. That's where her daughter, Robin Anders, lives, at that place. And so there is an obituary in the paper, and O'Connell is serving them. And I knew Steely, and she was an advocate for human rights, and she stood up for marginalized people, and she worked for them. She put her life energy into it. So that's for Steely.
So Sunday when we were painting, I wasn't here because I was at a friend's house for a birthday party for Michael. So that's why I did not stand up. I have an excuse.
Well, just one joy. Ann and I attended a picnic yesterday that combined the Ecuadorian families that we're providing transportation for and other things out in a farm near Spring Valley. It's just nice to see these communities come together a little bit and to show that there are people that care about others. Last stone for all those joys and concerns left unspoken. The picnic and the unspoken. Okay, looking forward to Eileen's presentation. Always fun to have her. So please welcome Dr. Eileen Korenic. It's a lot of slides as usual. Come on up. You know how that works.
Thank you. Thanks everybody for having me back again. I love being here. This is such a fun group to talk to. And I'm not saying that you should do this, but every time I say something, I see at least one person going, which is like, it's so much better than when my students were. So that's really, really quite nice. I sent this slide to Anne, who massages it into the rest of all of the slides that you saw previous to this one, and. One of the things that she emailed back to me was, seeing is believing, and my talk is really going to be about limitations of human vision, and these are natural limitations. There's nothing you can do about them. This is something that humans we are stuck with them for good or bad. But she said, this is just, fits in with the whole AI thing. And I hope all of you are at least, if you're using AI, you are at least being skeptical about its use somewhere. Even if maybe you're being sucked in, but most of us, I think, are at least aware we should be paying attention. Are we really seeing what they're showing us? Really? But this talk is not about going to something artificially manipulated, okay? I'm going to be talking about limitations that are just part of the human eye system. And the whole idea of seeing is believing, some of you may know the story, and I'm not pushing any kind of religion in this fashion, but right after Easter, when Jesus rises from the dead, and all of the apostles are in the upper room except for Thomas, the one who is called Doubting Thomas, he's not there. And they all tell him, Thomas, we have seen the Lord, he is alive. And Thomas says, I won't believe it until I see it. And the next time Jesus comes, Thomas is there, and Thomas sees the crucifixion wounds. And that sort of has been the beginning of this idea of, if you see it with your own eyes, it's not being manipulated like AI, you see it really and truly with your own eyes, it's not digital, there's no manipulation. Is it still real? And stemming from that story of doubting Thomas, it's like, well, you can't doubt your own eyes, or can you? And yes, you can doubt your own eyes, and otherwise there wouldn't be a talk today. So this is what the structure of the eye looks like in I hate to use the phrase cutaway version. But basically what we're looking at here, light is coming in from the left-hand side. The first thing that it hits is going to be the surface of the eye, which is the cornea, and that's where most of the focusing of the eye happens. Whatever else happens is sort of fine-tuning, but it all happens mostly at the cornea. Enters through this opening, that's the pupil. This is where the iris, the colored part of your eye, is. There's a lens that continues to focus the light, and it finally hits the back of the eye, and that's where the retina is. And those are all of the cells that actually carry the signals to your brain. So the retina is finally where the detector is. Now I'm going to be doing this from the viewpoint of, my field is optical physics. So I'm going to be talking about the eye and vision in terms of an optical system. And at the end, I always open it up for questions or comments, and invariably, every time I give a talk about something having to do with vision, people will come up to me afterwards and they will say, okay, let me tell you, every time I rub my eyes really hard, I see hexagons. What's that about? So I'm not looking at, the idiosyncrasies that many of you might have, as part of your own visual system. You probably need to go to a sensory psychologist to have those kinds of questions answered, which is, a perfectly legitimate field of study. But I'm looking at this really in terms of, this is an optical system. You have lenses, you have surfaces, and you can switch where the light is going to go and how it's going to be detected. So we're going to start out by taking a look, first of all, at some limitations in color. And it turns out we can see color because inside of our eyes there are some very long molecules. They're normally sort of all twisted up. They're fairly complicated molecules. And as soon as some little bit of light comes in and it's absorbed up by one of these molecules, the molecule relaxes. And as soon as it does that, it sends a signal to the brain, ultimately, that says you are seeing something. So that's the whole basis of it. There are 4 different kinds of molecules in our eyes. 3 of them are for detecting color. 1 of them is for just detecting light from dark. But they're fairly complicated molecules. The three that we have for color are considered red sensitive, green sensitive, and blue sensitive. And this is kind of a weird little graph. It's actually showing sensitivity, and it says the higher the graph is, the less light you need in order to be able to detect it. That is, for example, these that are red sensitive, you need the least amount of light because they are the most sensitive. If this particular color of light comes in, you need fewer bits of light. And the bit of light that we're talking about is something called a photon, which you can just think of as sort of like a little ball of energy, okay? We don't know how big they are, but we think of them sort of like little marbles of energy. So it turns out we have this limitation based on the way that our visual system works. If you have an incoming green color, something in a green wavelength, it's going to actually activate those cells that are quite sensitive in the green. That will send a message to your brain, and your brain says, you are seeing green, duh. Okay, it's just that straightforward. But what if you don't have something coming in that is pure red or pure green or pure blue? So it's activating more than one kind of photoreceptor. What if you have something coming in, for instance, that is yellow? And to take a look at where yellow is here, yellow should be activating green sensitive cells and red sensitive cells. And now your brain is getting a message saying red activated, green activated. What are you seeing? You're seeing yellow. Our brain has learned to interpret that double sensory input as the yellow color. So red cells say red, green say green, brain gets yellow. But what if you actually send two colors into your eye? Like, for instance, you'd send red light in and you would send green light in, like you might see, for instance, with Christmas tree lights, say. Now, the red cones are detecting the red, the green sensitive ones are detecting the green, and they're sending the same message to your brain. You still think you're seeing yellow. So if red and green are overlapping each other, you cannot tell the difference between red plus green or true yellow. So we are already limited because we don't really know what colors are coming in. All we know is how have those signals been adapted. So you can either see yellow because you're receiving yellow, or you can see yellow because you're receiving red plus green. And you don't get to know what that is. Now, some of that is from evolution, and it turns out, and I'm not entirely clear on this myself because I'm not a biologist, but it turns out there is some energy savings in combining these signals that are coming from all of your cells. And so there is some reason for why we don't get to distinguish them, because it saves your visual system a little bit of energy. There are some animals, though, and the mantis shrimp is one example. A mantis shrimp, and these range from about 4 inches to about 15 inches long. A mantis shrimp has 16 different kinds of photoreceptors. Not only can it tell differences in wavelength, differences in color, beyond anything we can do. We only have 3 kinds of color receptors. The mantis shrimp, 16. It can also distinguish whether the light is coming at you as a wave up and down or coming at you sideways. It can distinguish that. In my opinion, this was a waste of evolution. Just saying. I had a student who actually had a mantis shrimp as a pet. They have very sharp pincers on the front, so every time he would go to, it's not a cuddly sort of thing, he would go in to clean the cage or tank or wherever it was, and the thing would hiss and spit at him. So I thought, why? Why does that exist? To be an example in an optics lab. I don't know. So we have limitations of color. We also have limitations in how much detail we can see, and we call that resolution. So once again, we're looking at the image of the eye here, same thing as before. And there in the retina, we have 2 different shaped cells. Some are called rod cells, because they look like up and down magic wand rods. And some of them are called cone cells, because they kind of look like upside down ice cream cones, kind of, sort of. And it turns out the rod cells do have a pigment in them, one of these folded up pigments. It can detect the difference between light and dark. different shades of, different levels of light and dark, but it cannot distinguish color. We have about on the order of 90 million rod cells in each retina, 90 million. And they are mostly distributed around the outer edge of the retina. So they help your peripheral vision, but they're not the things that are activated when you look directly at something. The cone cells, we have fewer of those. The cone cells have been measured, so have the rod cells, but the cone cells, the smallest ones, are in the best part of your vision. When you look directly at some sort of object, where that light falls in your retina gives you absolutely the sharpest vision. There are the most cone cells there. You have somewhere between 5 and 6 million cone cells in each retina. And they are packed so tightly there in that one part of the sharpest part of your vision that is called the fovea. So when you look directly at something, you are using the best cells packed as tightly as they can be. A single cone cell has a width of 1/100th the width of a fine human hair, 0.5 of a micron. You know, typically human hair is about 100 microns. So it's like we're going really, really tiny, which means they can be packed quite closely together. But even as they are that closely packed, if one of these little photons comes in, it's gotta hit. It's gotta hit one of those cells to get to where that folded molecule is. And look at all the space there is. Even something packed that tightly, there's still lots of space, which means sometimes photons don't get caught at all. And if they don't, they just pass right through, they miss all of the cells that there are, and they just get trapped and they warm up the back of your eye, which is not all that bad. You know, it's one photon at a time. If any of you have animals, have you ever seen your animals look into the fire? You know, campfire, for example. A dog look, or I don't know if this is mean, do you shine a flashlight in your dog's eyes and you see color come back out again? Animals actually have an extra layer at the back of their eye behind the retina. So if the photons miss any of the cells, they get reflected by this extra layer called the tapetum. It sends those photons forward, and those animals get a chance to catch that light again. So animals can see better in the dark because they can see the light coming in. If it gets missed, they can see the light bouncing back out again. Human beings do not have that. Maureen?
Is that why animals, when you shine a flashlight, you see their eyes?
You see their eyes, and it depends on which animal it is, and also on the specific species, what color you see. So it's not like all horses are green. Some of them are green, some are yellow, some are blue. Dogs have different colors, so yeah, it just depends on the animal. But animals that can see well in the dark have that extra layer. It's kind of hard to imagine how light gets into your eye at all. So so the light is entering from this side. This is again a cutaway of the whole retina, and here are the rod and cone cells. They're at the very back, farthest point from the front. Before those photons can even get to the cells that are actually going to be, detecting them, the photon has to pass through a bunch of nerve cells, that connect the nervous system to the rod and cone cells. So there's all these layers, plus there is also a layer somewhere about in here, it's not represented well, but there's also a layer of blood vessels back there to supply nutrients to the retina. So it's got to get through, a single photon has to get through all these layers. The first layer that it hits is typically going to be the blood system, the blood vessels. So if you've ever taken a picture, remember the old days, you would take a picture with a flash, thank you. I couldn't think of the word, a flash camera. The first thing that would reflect, it would reflect off of the blood cells, and that's why you got red eye. Then they, photographers got smart and they stopped sending the light directly into your eye. They started using flash bulbs that were quite removed from where the picture was being taken, so you could get rid of that effect. But there are a lot of layers that makes it very difficult for a photon to get all the way through. The guess is, and it's a pretty professional estimation, but the guess is if you have at least 6 photons coming in, the likelihood is one of them might make it. So you could, in fact, detect one single photon, provided it actually gets in through all of those barriers to the right cell that can actually detect it. Several years ago, I went to, I usually go now to Ratzinger Eye. I'm not shilling for them, sorry. At one time I went to Pearl Vision Center up in Hudson. And if any of you have ever, and many of you seem to have glasses, or you probably have gone for at least an eye test, one of the first things that they do is they have you look into a machine. It sends very low energy light into your eye, comes back out again, and they can tell the difference between what did they send in and how did it come back out. So they already have a pretty good idea of what's wrong with your eye before the doctor even looks at it. They already know there's something that came in, it's different from what's coming out of your eye. And they usually do it like with a balloon, something pretty, something, peaceful and happy to see. At Pearl, they actually use that, but instead of having the doctor look in the eye, you look in that machine and it takes a picture of your retina. So when I went to Pearl, I saw that they did that, and I saw that it was saved as a JPEG file. And I thought, well, a JPEG file, I don't need Pearl's special software to look at this image again. So when I went back after my eyes had been checked and they gave me a prescription, I went to pick up my glasses, I brought a jump drive, and I said, I would like the file of my own retina pictures. And the clerk was, what? Why? I teach optics. Okay. Like they didn't believe me. But I thought, I wonder how many people were sitting around me, who realized, hey, that's my medical information. I'm entitled to look at it. So yeah, they gave me those files. So this is what my retinas look like. There's some interesting stuff here to see. This is from the left eye, this is from the right eye. Wherever you see the brightest point there, that's where the fovea is. That's the place you have the best vision. When you look directly at something, the light goes directly to that part. Lots and lots of cone cells there. Right next to it, and I'm not sure how well you can see this, there's a sort of a dark area here and another dark area over there. Can you all kind of sort of see that? So it's a little bit difficult to make those out. Those two dark areas are called blind spots because there is some place where all of the nerves of your eye finally have to exit your eye and go to the brain. So where those nerves exit, there cannot be any rod cells or cone cells there because at some place the nerves have to exit. And so if you look with just one eye anywhere, and you just sort of move your finger in front of your eye, at some point it looks like it disappears, and as soon as that happens, we get panicky and we look to see where it is, so that shifts a little bit of where our focus is. And because the blind spots are in two different parts of the retina, each eye fills in for the other one. So we mostly don't notice that unless you are actually doing a test for it. And it's a remarkably simple test. You use a piece of graph paper, close one eye, you draw yourself a circle right in the center of the graph paper, and you move your pencil in, and you take a look at where does the tip of the pencil disappear, and you make a mark. That's the beginning of your blind spot. So you can actually find it, you can measure it for yourself. The first time I did that with students, of course, hey, my blind spot is about 7 inches wide. Well, you're looking at it on paper. You got to go back to an angle coming out of your eye. The blind spot is maybe a millimeter or two. It's not dramatic, and it's not enough to keep you from driving if you're only one-eyed. It's not that big of an area. But so with these different kinds of colors that can be detected, one of the tests that's being done, this is being done at the University of Rochester when I was a student there, is they can actually send in different wavelengths of light. And it seemed like a terribly crude kind of way of doing an experiment. The person who was being tested had a bite plate. They're supposed to bite down so that it would hold their head in one place. They would send light in, the light would bounce back out again, and they would figure out where were the red sensitive, where are the green sensitive, where are the blue sensitive cells. And they would put together a picture. This is not a real, this is the real picture. This is what it actually looks like. This is what they got from it. They actually mapped how many red or green or blue sensitive cells are there. And it turns out most of us have very few blue sensitive cells, which is a little surprising because Most people, as this has been tested around the world, most people say their favorite color is blue. Maybe that's because of sky or finding water or something like that, to survive. So we have more green and red sensitive cells than we have blue sensitive cells. And again, some artists have taken advantage of that. If you know that there are going to be just these certain spots that the photon is going to be able to get in, people like the pointillists, like George Seurat, took some advantage of that. He did not know the structure of the eye, however. He did all of it by, basically trial and error. And so on this particular piece, maybe some of you are familiar with this piece, Sunday on the Island. This is a quite large piece. It's something like 18 feet by 10 feet. They estimate in the tens of millions of individual little dots on there. Oops. So this is what it looks like up close. What he did was to get these little dots, instead of taking his brush and dipping it in paint, he used the handle of his brush, dipped the handle in paint, and touched the handle to the canvas. The handle of his brush was 1/16 inch diameter. And so he would have to put these colors on. Sometimes they overlapped, sometimes they did not. This is what it looks like. He would have to wait for one layer to dry before he would put on the next layer. And he did not know, because he didn't understand the optical principles of this, he didn't understand how it worked. So what he would do is, in order to make a large painting like this, he would do some kind of early study where he would figure out what are the best colors that he thought would work together. This is a piece called La Chahut, or the kick-up, the can-can dance. So he would figure out which dots actually work together, and when he figured out that, then he would finally turn those into, a dot painting. And if you take a look at that 1/16 inch diameter dots, oops. If you have two dots that are close together, like for instance, a red dot and a blue dot, if each one is 1/16 inch diameter, and say they're separated by 1/16 of an inch, that's an eyeball in case you don't recognize it. Well, the thing that allows you ultimately to be able to see those as two separate dots is what kind of an angle do those two dots make to your eye. And if it's a really big angle, there's a big separation, you should be able to see the two dots as separate. But if the dots are very close together, if they make a really small angle to your eye, there is some limit to how well you can see detail. And this does not go just for color. This is any kind of detail. If you look, say, at a person's face, and you can see that they have some details. You can see they have pores or freckles. Depending on how far apart the pores are or the freckles are, you might or might not be able to separate those into two separate details. They have measured this on average. Most people can actually tell there are two separate dots if the angle between the two spots is called 1 arc minute. An arc minute is a 60th of a degree. And a degree is 1/360th of a full circle. We're talking about a very, very tiny measurement. And that goes for most people. That's considered average. Some people are worse than that. The older you get, the less your resolution is. Things have to be much farther apart for you to see them as two separate points. And if you're younger, your eyes are better. You're likely to you can see things even if the angle is smaller than that. Well, it turns out, if you're looking at two dots, with the definition that Seurat used, 16-inch dots separated by 1/16 of an inch, it turns out you have to be, in order to get this 1 arc minute of separation, you have to be 18 feet back from where the painting actually is. So I thought we'd try a little demo here, and again, I'm not sure if this is going to be dark enough to try this out. We can try it. I'm not sure how well this will work. So we can try this, and this may work a little bit better if you care to move a little closer to the center. Otherwise, I can just walk around with this, so we'll see how well this works. So I'm going to take a flashlight, and I'm going to shine it, and I've punched a pinhole in this piece of cardboard. Okay? Could you raise your hand if you see 2 dots there? Anybody see 2 dots? This is a very good honesty test. There's only 1 hole. So if you are in fact seeing 2 dots from 1 hole, you need to have your eyes checked. Okay, there's only just the 1 hole. Okay, and the next one, there actually are 2 holes. The holes are separated by 1 centimeter, and that means, I had to measure this out, 1 arc minute is something on the order of about 10 yards away or more. How many people are seeing 2 dots this time? Okay, so all of you are within about 10 yards of me, okay? In this next one, there are in fact 2 holes. The 2 holes, oops. Gotta figure out which way I oriented this. Okay, the 2 holes this time, if you are about 6 yards away from me, you probably will not be able to see that there are 2 holes. This time there actually are 2. Is anyone seeing 2? So you may, so some of you are closer people are in fact actually seeing 2. And this, of course, as one of the limitations of vision, this has some big, this is where Seurat's initial gallery showing was. This is a hotel, and each artist at this particular gallery was given a different room at the hotel. So Seurat was showing his stuff in one room. Can you picture how big a hotel room is? 10 feet maybe, 12 feet across if you're lucky. You needed to be 18 feet away in order to see his color mixing, in order to see the dots go away. They didn't give him a big enough room. So when he had his first gallery showing, people thought his stuff was crap. They just thought, it's all grainy. That's not how you paint. So he was not very successful in his lifetime. Even the painting that we just saw took him 2 years to finish Sunday on the island of La Grande Jatte. 2 years, and nobody wanted to buy it because people didn't realize you had to stand really, really far back. It's now housed at the at the Chicago Institute of Art. And everybody, and they have it in a very, very large gallery. And everybody who goes to see it goes and does exactly the same thing. You stand as close as you can, okay, without breaking the plane, because there's going to be an alarm if you break the plane, so you can't touch the painting. You stand as close as you can so you can see the dots. And then everybody, they're backing up until they get to whatever is their required distance, typically 18 feet. They require the required distance, at least for their vision. And then they see it, they finally see the color mixing, they see the color blending. Yes. I don't remember. That's one way to measure it. I went to see it, that particular painting was eventually turned into a musical by Stephen Sondheim, okay? And I saw the musical in Chicago, and they had just gotten the painting to sort of coordinate with the theater. So whenever that was probably the 1980s or so. And I of course calculated how much did it cost the Chicago Institute of Art per dot. Because they think they paid whatever it was, 3 million, whatever, by divide by the number of dots, it cost them something like 39 cents a dot, to buy the painting. And now it's like, well, where is it going to go? Who's going to pay that much anymore for a painting? It's there to stay, I think. But that has gone into, that calculation has now gone into anything that you see that has individual little dots in it, anything that has little pixels, like your phone, like your laptop screen, like your DVD player, like your television. This particular image is coming from a DVD player. Typically the size of those little pixels, and notice they have red, green, and blue pixels, because that's what we can detect, right? And so we detect red, green, and blue. That should be able to generate all the colors for us. These are about 300 microns long and about 100 microns wide. And if you hold your DVD player or your We recommend holding your laptop 1 arm's length away from you to get the proper 1 arc minute that will allow you to blend the colors. But if you sit too close to your screen, or you hold your phone too close, or you lean in to watch your television, you're taking away that advantage of the color mixing. So the whole industry that has a display is aiming for that 1 arc minute or less. And you can do that, very expensively if you buy a 4,000 pixel television screen. That ensures that no matter where you sit, you'll have less than 1 arc minute of separation. But otherwise, you're expected to sit at a prescribed distance in order to get that correct effect. So this is what they look like, and it generates whatever colors they want to show you by mixing the correct number of red or green or blue pixels. We also see some limitations just because we're looking at something for a long time. And I thought I'd try this. This one might be a little too fine for the darkness in this room. So what I thought we would do is try one. I'm going to ask you to look at this for 30 seconds. Look right at the very center of it, like about where the person's nose or nostril is, okay? I'll give you 30 seconds, and then we're going to go to a white screen, and I'd like you to tell me what is it that you see. Just got to find my clock. Okay, everybody's, if you would, and if you're off on the side, this may not work quite as clearly for you. Okay, we're going to go to the white screen now. What are you seeing? Face. Some sort of face. Wherever it was black in the previous one should now look white. Whatever was white in the previous one should now look black. And the idea of this is that first 30 seconds, if you didn't move your eyes, you are flooding those rod cells, because this was a black and white image, you're flooding those rod cells. The molecules have opened up, they have detected all they can detect. And now you look at a white screen, they can't pick up anything more. So the only place that will pick up are those molecules that have not already been activated. I cannot remember where I got this from. And so every time I use this, people tell me they see Jesus. Some people tell me they see Abraham Lincoln. Some people tell me they see Hitler. But I cannot remember what it's supposed to be. Einstein. Okay, yeah, that's another possibility. And you may not. It may take you even longer than 30 seconds to develop this, and that's a very individual thing. I thought we'd try one in color as well. So let's do the same thing. I'm going to give you 30 seconds again. And if you look right at the center of it, I'll give you 30 seconds to stare at it. This time, the stuff that is magenta is now activating your red and blue sensitive cells. Then they're flooding in these 30 seconds. The stuff that looks sort of cyan, teal colored is activating the blue and green. And those are being flooded. So when we go to a white screen, whatever looked magenta before should now look green, and whatever looked aquamarine sort of colored before should now look red. This could last quite a long time. I knew one optics professor, he actually gave a whole lecture for a half an hour. He gave a lecture where all he did, he was talking about his research and stuff, and all he did for the whole lecture was he would show orange stripes vertical, and then he would go to green stripes horizontal, and orange stripes for half an hour. he was doing this. And the last thing was that we had been adapting to this for a half an hour already. And he showed us a white screen, and of course, wherever it was green, we now saw something that was sort of reddish, sort of magenta looking, that was vertical. And wherever it was, what was the other color, orange, we saw something blue. People were reporting seeing that after image for a couple of days after the talk. So that it's a very sensitive thing. And of course, that turns out to be a very big deal if you are an art curator. You know, if you're walking around and there are paintings hanging, and they have just painted, like you've just painted this lovely room, but a nice neutral color. If you have just painted your art room that you're going to be showing your gallery precious pieces, and you've just painted the whole thing maroon, that's going to influence what colors you see in the paintings. So they have to be very careful about how it is that they choose those. That was probably a little bit too fussy for the darkness in this room. I thought I'd show you this one. This too is adapting to color. This one is a very personal one because people see it change very at an individual rate. Some of you will see the pink look like it's going clockwise. Some of you will see it going counterclockwise. Some of you will see a pink change into green. Some of you will see the pink disappear altogether, and you'll see a blank spot that seems to be going around, and it will change from one to the next, depending on your own personal individual system. So this is not being manipulated by me. This is not AI. This is your own eye just trying to make sense of what really is actually just a program that just sends an empty pink spot around. I think we're going to skip past those if we could. And I thought that the last limitation that we'll take a look at is limitations due to ambiguity. And this too is something that there's nothing we can do about it. This is how the human brain handles images. If you look at this particular thing, what do you see first? Do you see a person? Yep. You see a person? Does anybody else see a person first? Is the first thing. Did anybody see the word liar first? There are psychologists who are now trying to attach what do you see first? Is that how you process information? Are you a word person? Do you process words first, or do you process images first? And once you see one and someone tells you the other one exists, do you also see that other one? But you don't see them at the same time. No matter how fast you think you are, you can only process one at a time. And that's where the ambiguity comes in. You see the word liar, and then you see the figure, and they lie or figure. And you pop from one to the other, and you can't seem to control that, what it is that you want to see, and you can't hold both images in your head at the same time. This is one of my favorite ambiguous images. And depending on what it is that you see first, some people see an old man with crazy hair and a big Fu Manchu mustache. Other people see a man and a woman kissing underneath a flowery bower. Does everybody see the old man? Yes. Okay. So here's the old man. There's his nose, his sunken eyes. He's got a big mustache. There's a beard, and there's all his crazy hair. Okay, so that's the old man. If you see the young couple kissing, here's the boy. He kind of looks like a prince. They're kissing right there. He's got a big hat like a Venetian dandy, and he's wearing a cape. And there's the girl. Those are her eyes. They're kissing again. There's her hair, and that's her gown. And all of this stuff around them are the flowers that are surrounding them as they kiss. And once again, once you see one, you pop between the two of them, and it's hard for you to control which one you are actually looking at. It goes from one to the other. Is everybody seeing the prince and the kiss? Eventually. There has been a whole school of artists that have been playing with these ideas. Bridget Riley is one of them, starting in the 1960s. What you're actually looking at here is just a collection of alternating black and white rectangles. And they're getting smaller and smaller. Almost everyone who sees this has the impression these are cylinders that are turning towards each other. There is no movement here whatsoever. These are absolutely, entirely just simple rectangles, black and white rectangles. This is probably one of the most famous of the ambiguous images. Do you see two black silhouettes, faces looking at each other, or do you see one white vase in the middle? And eventually you will see both. Your mind will pop back and forth between those. Well, as I was looking for these, this is a famous one called the figure ground image. I was looking these up and I happened to come across this. For Queen Elizabeth's Silver Jubilee, somebody made a vase for her. And when you make a vase, if any of you have ever done pottery, you throw it on the wheel, you get a cylindrically symmetric object. And I saw this crappy looking vase. And I thought, why on earth would they give that to the Queen? That looks just dreadful. But if you look at this from just exactly the right angle, that is her logo, if you point that to the front, there's her seen from the side, and there's Prince Philip seen from the side. This is a 3D example of the figure ground image. So you see a vase in the middle, you see her profile, and you see his profile. They actually have it on display, like that. So now you can see the figure ground. So how clever to be able to do figure ground image, but with a 3D object. And finally, some op art that actually makes use of visual limitations. There's an artist named A. Kitaoka, and he actually is an optical scientist, but he has used his knowledge of the optical system, the human optical system, to generate optical effects. So this piece is called a pulsar. It just has alternating bright and dark, but sort of softened shadows. And then there are little sparkly bits in here. Most people have the sense that this is doing a kind of a pulsing towards you, even though, once again, there is no motion. Kitaoka has done some very clever stuff. It's a very simple pattern that he uses. He calls it a sawtooth pattern, where he puts two images close together, where one is it starts out completely black, goes to exactly as bright as he can go, then he drops it back down to black again. So this is what that kind of image looks like. So he's got these, it's very dark, and then it goes very bright, and then it drops back down to black again. This is meant to invoke an ambiguous image in your peripheral vision, which is where your rod cells are. Okay? So, and that too is a product of evolution. If the cheetah is coming to eat you out of the gene pool, does it matter if you know that it's golden in color? It doesn't matter. All you need to know is there's something there. Okay? And so we have developed this peripheral vision that when you see something just from the side view, you can tell that there's something there. And this particular sawtooth pattern actually takes advantage of that. So I'm going to ask you to look over here. And every time you blink, you will see the top circle shift by one wedge clockwise. And every time you blink, you will see the bottom one shift by one wedge counterclockwise for every blink. And this room may or may not be dark enough for that, I don't know. So that's kind of like a proof of concept, but he is also an artist. So he put these together with a little bit of color. And now, wherever you're not looking, looks like it's rotating. And if that number, what is that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, if 6 circles with a little bit of color and a sawtooth pattern is good, let's have more. This is actually like you don't quite know where to look. Wherever you direct your attention, it looks perfectly still, and every place else in that image looks like it's rotating one way or the other every time you blink. And since you can't really predict your own blinks, it looks like it's moving all the time. Oh, fun. My favorite piece of Kitaoka's is this one. He calls this is not a spiral. And I actually had to print this out and put my pencil down and actually proved this to myself. Every single one of these is a continuous circle. These are concentric circles. This is not a spiral, concentric circles. And so we'll end here with some questions or comments. I included this picture because this is one of those op art pieces that once again is designed to sort of take your visual limitations. Can you guess what this piece might be called? Zebras, yeah. But you know, where are the zebras? He actually, the person who painted this started with a black background and painted white onto the black. There are no connecting lines between any of the white. You are putting together the zebra for yourself. And so if you, yeah, it sure looks like a zebra. Not really. He didn't paint a zebra. He painted a whole bunch of white lines, you know, that have some curves and look a little parallel, but it's designed entirely to fool you into thinking that there are zebras there. So I will stop there. I'm happy to take any questions or share your idiosyncrasies if you want to. Yes.
Well, yesterday, Radio Lab. Grab the green light.
Oh, over there.
Too many optical illusions, you can't see it. There we go.
Yesterday, Radio Lab did a thing on vision. You know, of course, dogs do not see red. There's a number of animals that don't see red. There's people that are colorblind. And they got into things, beings that are able to see more than we are. And they used a model of a chorus to demonstrate what could be seen, not seen. And we're kind of humans are kind of boring. You get down to some other animals and there's this whole chorus, and it's absolutely wonderful. So it was really a pleasure to hear you and hear them.
And that too, that's one of those, it turns out pigeons actually have 4 different kinds of color photoreceptors, pigeons, one more than humans have. What an entire waste of evolution yet again. But this time, pigeons can see red, green, and blue, just like we can, and they can see in the infrared. So pigeons can tell where there is a warm building, and that helps them to avoid getting killed in the city. You know, I mean, what a waste, but, you know, thank God for the pigeon population, huh? So yes, that's true. And because there are so many animals that cannot see red, I think that's one of those funny things, you know, people do that with their cats, like you play with a little laser pointer. You know, and typically if you use a red one, red is very low energy. So if it points in your eye, well, don't do that. But it's such low energy that if it's just in passing, it's not, oh, my eyes. But you know, if you do that with your cat, say, the cat is just going after the brightness. The cat cannot see the red. So you might as well get a cheap one if you're going to play with your cat, because the shorter the wavelength, the more expensive the laser is. So red is a good one to play with, but the cat can't, in fact, see red. And neither can horses see red. The horse cannot see red. It doesn't know what color an apple is. It only knows what it smells like. So you know, once again, you could probably, you know, get away with feeding your horse or any animal, you know, something that maybe doesn't look as appetizing to you, because what do they care what color it is?
It'd be nice for somehow artists or scientists to help humans understand how these animals see ultraviolet and infrared. I'd love to know what a bee sees when it goes to a flower.
And there have been studies that show, because there are now ultraviolet imaging cameras, and when a bee sees the ultraviolet image coming from a flower, it's very different from what humans see in terms of the petal. There's a very different marking in terms of ultraviolet patterns.
So a question that I've had all my life, but I've never really understood or looked it up, I guess, is for light, you have those 3 colors, blue, red, and green. The mixtures provide all the colors, but when we go to art class, it's red, yellow, and blue. that doesn't make sense to me. Why the three basic colors of light and paint are similar, but not quite the same, because there's that yellow when you're doing artistic painting.
Because when you're looking at paint or crayons or something like that, you're not looking at a mixture of light. You're looking at a mixture of pigments. And that mixes, they mix with each other differently. So there is a primary set of colors when you're adding. I have a whole other talk, a companion to this one on color vision. But yes, when you're first learning your colors and learning mixing, you learn it with crayons, or you learn it with tempera paint or something. And the mixing of pigment is a chemical process. It's not mixing the colors in your eye like light mixes together. So the colors for mixing, the primary colors for mixing light are red, green, and blue, but for mixing color are red, yellow, and blue. And it gets even more complicated because red, yellow, and blue are not very satisfying in terms of coming up with a lot of colors. So for printing, like for newspaper pictures, for example, if any of you subscribe to the Pierce County Journal, on the first page, if you look right next to where they have your name printed, there is a little circle with an X through it or a cross through it. That's what they use for color registration. And so often the Pierce County Journal is just way, way off on that. And you see that same pattern, the circle with a cross, in cyan and magenta and yellow and black. And they're not lined up very well.
Yeah, I used to be in the newspaper business, and you had to line up the floor plates absolutely perfectly to get the color rendition you want.
And it's such a tiny difference, because I've saved several. If you have me over to do the color vision talk, adding colors like that is just, they're off by, less than a millimeter. And I look, and on that same page, because they did not do the color registration properly, every picture that you see, everybody is sunburned with a Santa Claus mustache. It's just way off. It's just completely off. And, that also messes up advertisers' logos. If they want their color to be a certain, recognizable thing, and you can see their shadows of the colors off. It's very, very pronounced, yeah. Yes?
Let's see, I have one question and then a comment. I'll do the comment first. You mentioned the reflex off the back, the retina of the animal's eyes. And it's illegal, for instance, in Wisconsin to shine deer and get that reflection from the deer's eyes, which I think is kind of bluish.
I don't know.
And of course, if you shine the bright light at them, then they're going to sit there and shine their little bluish reflection, whatever, reflex back at your eye, back to you, and you can shoot them, which is illegal. Kind of taking advantage of the deer's physiology. And one year I was in the South and was basically shining things and finding different animals. Frogs have some very soft blue reflexes, things like that. And alligators I found have a very kind of a Halloween orange thing, the sort of evil-looking reflex. But the other question is, I have very little knowledge of it. I've just read a little bit, but it might add to your possibilities here for the talk, and that's the experimental methods or whatever people are doing to try to get birds to recognize that windows are not transparent. And I don't know, they do try to do patterning things on the glass surfaces or try to do things with UV reflections or whatever. And I don't know enough about it to suggest that, but it would be another thing to add to your
Yeah, thank you. They just ran I think it was just a couple months ago in one of these Sunday magazine shows, that yes, they do put patterns into the glass so that birds can tell there's something there, that it's not just more reflection of the sky. And you know, the business of retroreflection in animals, I was in the Amazon. I took a tour down there, and we were all, you know, all of us were on the boat, and we were going to go out at night. We're going to go look at alligators along the Amazon River, you know. So we're all, you know, in the boat, and of course our guide was sitting behind. He had a very bright spotlight. He was sitting behind, and we were all gathered in this boat, probably 15 of us, and he's pointing and he said, "Everybody see the eyes? Everyone see the eyes?" And I thought, well, no. You're the only one who can see it. It retro-reflects right back to where the light came from. It doesn't spread out all over the place. So the next night we were going to go out again, and I told everybody, if you want to see crocodile eyes, bring your own flashlight. You know, because you're not going to see but what the guy with the big spotlight is seeing. He's the only one who can see that. So the next night, you know, 15 of us were in the boat, and we all got our nice bright flashlights. I think we scared the alligators away. There were too many of us going, whoa! But I thought, I hope everybody learned something from, you know, retroreflection. Oh, yeah, sorry.
I'm just sort of on the art history aspect of your talk, that the old man and the couple kissing look kind of like a Victorian painting or object to me. And then there's another very famous one where it's a fruit bowl, I think, that has another image in it. I wish I could be more specific. But so this type of double image thing has been gone through art history for a long time as just not so much about, you know, was there a correlation between the scientific part of it, or is it just an aesthetic double image thing that was interesting to do that runs through the history of art?
Well, there is one very famous image, and some of you may have seen this. It's people's usually their first introduction to ambiguous images, where it looks like from one grasp of the image it looks like an old woman. You can see her nose and the big chin, and she's got a wart. And if you look at it the other way, it looks like a young woman. She's wearing a bonnet, and the one's eyes now become the other one's mouth. And people have seen that, and whatever people see first, you know, that's usually the one they think it is. The other one is the fake one. And so what visual scientists have done with that particular one is they took that same image and they emphasized making it look like the young woman, and they emphasized making it look like the old woman. And I've shown this to students. I said, "Do you now see the two of them?" And they said, "No, I only see the first one that you showed me. I can't see, how is that enhanced? I don't see it." And you know, something similar happened. You all remember the thing that was going on with the dress? The gold dress, or the white dress with the gold trim, or the blue dress with black trim? And whatever people saw first, that's what they thought it was. And they, again, you know, visual scientists, you know, they emphasized one or the other to force you to see what the other people were seeing, and people just would not. It's what they saw first. I see blue and black. I see white and gold. You can't convince me it's anything else. So there is something to that it's like, it's hard for people to recognize what other people are seeing if they don't see it themselves.
One other comment, if you look back at Ulysses, or the Odyssey's been playing, and they talk about the Greek language, Homer did not talk about blue. And blue is one of the last colors that were talked about because people really they couldn't see blue because they didn't have an object that was blue that they could get their hands on, where you got a lot of red stuff, a lot of yellow stuff.
Yeah, there's been a lot of discussion about that among optics scientists, because the phrase that Homer often uses, he never calls the Mediterranean blue. He always calls it wine dark sea. And, well, wine is red. It's not the same color as blue. So why they didn't have a word for it? They didn't have an object, perhaps, but the sky is blue. You know, the water certainly is blue. And water is not blue because it's reflecting sky. Water is blue because it absorbs a lot of red light. And that's the last color that just is not absorbed. That's why glaciers are blue. because they just don't absorb blue light. They absorb lots of red. And so for a long time, people have been arguing about this, like maybe the Greeks actually simply did not see blue. They just didn't even see it. Well, they probably saw it. If they didn't have a word for it, maybe that doesn't really indicate that they didn't see it. But it's the same thing, people are colorblind. I had a student, he wanted so badly to be an electrician. That's the job he wanted. And he was declared legally colorblind. And when you have to do electrician work, you got to have you got to know the red and green wires. But he could not read the stripes on resistors. He was so good at distinguishing the varying levels of what we would have called gray. He passed every test, but he did not pass the test where the doctor said, you are not colorblind. So he could not be an electrician. I just thought, that is just heartbreaking, that he lost out on the one job he wanted because he could not, to their satisfaction, distinguish. I'm sorry I went way over time. So sorry about that. But thank you again for having me.
Oh, thank you, Eileen. That was wonderful. Well, Jonathan, you might have to help me here. Oh, as always, your support by being here and any financial contributions very much appreciated. There's a basket at the back. And on our summer schedule, we're every other Sunday here. In 2 weeks, we're going to hear about Theodore Parker, founding American Unitarian Universalist minister, and Allison and David are going to tell us about him. And that's it. Otherwise, community time. Whoops. How'd that happen? Okay, well, there are treats, and I know we brought something in. Who brought treats in? Ann? Yes, Nancy? Yeah. And now it's time for the closing words, which aren't up on the walls, but they are on the screen. So can you gather around here, hold hands for a minute?